Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dodson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 255 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dodson, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to get into our Because You Asked series, and this is titled One More Question. So I always joke around on the phone a little bit with customers when they call in is they want to ask one question, or they're only going to take a minute and they just want to ask one thing, and then one more question, one more question, one more question. I said it's going to be written on my tombstone. A, he tried. B, one more question. So without further ado, here we go. Before we get started, of course, I want to say thank you to a couple of our sponsors. First, I want to say thank you to Trigger Tech. They make world-class triggers. We recommend them for all of our custom rifles here. They are one of the easiest to install, easiest to adjust, and in my mind, one of the safest triggers on the market. So if you want to upgrade your rifle with a quality trigger, stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank MDT. MDT is the maker of fine rifle chassis. They are really one of the leaders in making not just a great different variety, but also super high quality, different price points, including getting into the Oryx, which we still think is one of the best unsung heroes on the market for a $500 chassis. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and you like to do it with a stock that's adjustable, that you can actually get to fit you well, that which will allow you to shoot better, stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com today. So as we're getting closer to Christmas here, we're going to continue on and talk about a new series that we did on YouTube. It's called Because You Ask, and it's going to be on our online prosumer gunsmithing school page that is on our website at wolfprecision.net. And it's a video series that we're really trying to get after with answering customers that really just commonly asked questions. And so doing it for more than 2 decades, I can replay the same question asked by 1,000 different customers over and over and over again. And when we're getting these questions now, what we're trying to do is go ahead and answer them in a video format. And also, it's part of our free prosumer gunsmithing school. So although there is a $15 fee for the prosumer gunsmithing school, and it includes our online long-range shooting school, and that's a monthly fee, we still want to post up some free stuff for customers to enjoy, because if we're getting asked that question, there's probably 10,000 customers that have that question in their head that just haven't asked it yet. So to go over a couple that we did a video review on, and we're getting ready to post our second video in our bedding series, Because You Ask, and just showcasing what the correction looks like and how much of a problem this really is. I just bedded another rifle yesterday. Did it need it? I would say 80% no, but it's an insurance policy, but there's lots of stocks out there that have 20%, absolutely a pass of like a failing grade as far as the inlet goes. So did they need it? Yes, without a doubt. And were they not going to shoot well if they weren't bedded? No, they weren't going to shoot well. They were definitely issues that were going to come out in the performance of the rifle. So we did and posted up 1 or 2 of our first video series, and then we're posting up our second video series, or second part to this. I'll be posted up sometime on Friday. With that, Because You Ask, I want to talk a little bit about 2 questions that we get here all the time, and just trying to help out a little bit, send some good information out there to help solve some of the problems that, generally speaking, cause you some headaches. The first one's real simple. When you're installing your suppressor on different rifles, sometimes we'll get a phone call or an email that says, hey, I went to put my suppressor on my rifle that I have shot it on before, but I cannot get it to thread the whole way onto the barrel. It won't thread to the shoulder. As soon as I get it close, it starts to stay really hard to turn. This is an easy one. What generally happens in this case scenario is you have multiple rifles you're using the same suppressor on, which is the nice part about having a direct thread suppressor. It doesn't require a brake. You can bounce it, get a 30 cal and you can put it on anything from whatever 30 cal it's rated for, 300 Win Mag, and then you can rate on down to the 223. It's just a really universal suppressor to have. But when this happens, and this happens quite often, is usually the shank length of the threaded portion of your barrels, they can fluctuate a little bit. And so although the threaded shank portion into the suppressor might be as long as an inch, your threaded portion or your shank portion of your barrel that's threaded, let's just say 5/8 by 24, might be 0.6 inches, might be 0.625, might be 0.650. It might be a half inch, and that's not uncommon either. So what happens when you bounce it from rifle to rifle, you put it on a rifle that has a half inch rather than the standard 0.6 or 0.625 inch, and you shoot it. Well, what happens is that carbon and stuff that's blowing out of the end of the suppressor is filling in the threads just in front of the crown. Then when you take that suppressor off, it threads off easily, and you go to put it on your other rifle. As you're threading it on, it's starting to cut into the carbon that's actually in the threads. So it's got to clean out those threads of the carbon and junk that's built in there. That's why it threads almost all the way on. It gets really tight. To fix that's actually very simple. The first thing is take your suppressor off, put a little hoppies on a Q-tip, get in there and wipe all that out. Get your pinky in there with a paper towel and get as much of that junk out of there as you can. And then put some good lube in the suppressor and on your threaded barrel, and then go ahead and thread it on. And if it gets a little tight, just turn it on part way, turn it off, turn it on part way. Now, you don't want to turn on to where it feels like it's getting stuck, right? But all that's going to happen is the threads of the muzzle are going to clean out some of that carbon that's actually in the suppressor after you wipe it out. Now, don't just take it and screw it on with a bunch of carbon in there. It could really get stuck, and it's not good for either the suppressor or the muzzle threads on your barrel. But once you get the most of it out, it's okay to keep threading it on gently, work it back off, thread it on, make sure there's lots of lube and grease in there, and then, of course, pull it all apart and clean it all out and put it back on permanently, and then lock it onto the shoulder. That's a very common question we get asked all the time. Hey, my suppressor won't screw on the threads the whole way. Another issue that was brought up this week, and we have a customer coming in for what's called a build assist. This is all prior to our prosumer gunsmithing school that's launching on March 1st. But he had a factory rifle, had nothing to do with ours, and he had purchased a scope. He had been through our long-range shooting school. So, of course, we appreciate the opportunity to sell him the scope and help him through all that process. And the rifle that he had was a decent shooting factory rifle. But he went on his hunting trip in 2024, and his rifle was all over the place. He had used the guide's suppressor on his rifle. Now, he had his dope all worked out for the rifle not being suppressed. He had it zeroed with it not being suppressed. He could run the targets out 600 yards without it being suppressed. And when he put a suppressor on, two things happened. One, they convinced themselves in the process that there's an unsolvable problem and it's probably in the scope. As soon as you convince yourself that you know what the problem is without having the facts behind it, you will probably continue to shoot loudly just because you think there's a problem. It's a placebo effect in reverse. The issue often happens when you put a suppressor on a rifle that's unknown is with this factory rifle was how was the quality of the alignment to the bore? So, for example, when you're buying a $500, $1,100 rifle complete, which still amazes me today that you can buy one for that price, are they dialing in that muzzle perfectly straight and true? And the answer is probably not. I mean, they're getting it close, but there's a difference between close and 0.0001. That's what we dial into here. Not just a thou or 2 or 3 thou, within 1/10 of 1,000ths. 1/30th width of a human hair perfectly straight and true. And this is to do our best on our end to make sure that we've got it as straight and true on our end. That way, if the suppressor is off a little bit, the insert in the suppressor is off a little bit, that we're not magnifying that problem. That we're actually making sure that we're not adding to it. And that's where the problem lies with a lot of the factory guns is it's not perfect. And off a little bit can mean nothing or it can mean all kinds of problems. The second problem is they didn't use any type of ground rod or bore rod to go in and check the alignment of the suppressor to the rifle when it was put on the rifle. So they make ground rods and they make some carbon fiber rods that are for checking the suppressor alignment to the bore of the rifle. So you can, once you get your suppressor on with your bolt back and the gun clear, of course, you can put this rod in there and look at it through the end of the suppressor off to the side, of course, and then make sure that it's not touching the sides of the exiting portion of the suppressor or closer, really close to one side or the other. Because what can happen is, even though you might not get a baffle strike, so, for example, they didn't get a baffle strike. I mean, they obviously shot multiple rounds with all kinds of problems. You can get a rub. And what that means is the bullet's so close that it's ever so slightly rubbing the baffles as it's exiting the suppressor. And that can be a little rub or a lot of rub, in which case it can be chipping pieces of the suppressor off. This means accuracy is going all over the place, and you're borderline of things going really bad in a hurry. The second part is when you put a suppressor on a rifle that you pick up velocity. So he had said that, hey, at distance, my dope wasn't running right. I was running high, and the further out we got, the higher I was getting. And it's not that it's a big deal, but it's part of the recipe. If you shoot with a suppressor on and you pick up 30 feet per second, that starts to be an additive. I mean, it's going to add to the problems that you're already existing. And then the third part is the re-zero. When you put a suppressor on and off a rifle, some rifles will actually tolerate it pretty well and have a repeatable point of impact shift of maybe less than an inch or 1 minute from center, which means an inch left, inch right, up, down. Some do a little bit better, but some can be 3, 4, 5 inches off. Some of that can be as the suppressor picks up weight, changing the harmonics of the barrel as you're shooting it, and everything's getting plugged up. Part of that could be the rub. Part of that could be the alignment. There's so many reasons why your zero could be off when you put your suppressor on. Some of them are problems, and some of them are just because you put the suppressor on. So you have to put the suppressor on, re-zero your rifle, but then the other part of this is check for accuracy. If it's shooting really well, that means at least you got an indication that you don't have any big bad rubs or anything, right? I always say, my rule of thumb here is a rifle should always shoot better with the suppressor on than with the suppressor off. And we will save that for the next podcast. So if you're interested in hearing a lot of the reasons why. But if you give it a pass and it's shooting good, you have to continue on the path of re-chronographing. So you have to know how much velocity you've picked up when you are measuring for the speed with the suppressor on, because you will pick up velocity. Another thing that happened, which is unbeknownst to a lot of customers, is they chronograph the rifle when it's new. And then they practice with it, a lot of times not shooting at distance, verifying that ever so slowly, as the rifle is getting broken in and the barrel is getting seasoned, you're picking up speed from the barrel breaking in. So to compound this customer's questions and problems was the fact that he didn't know what his current velocity was before he stuck the suppressor on it, and it's highly likely that he picked up 50 to 100 feet per second, even though he's shooting the same load, because barrels break in between 150 and 200 rounds. Somewhere in that sweet spot, you'll start to see increases in velocity, and it will settle back out. You have to re-chronograph when the rifle is getting some rounds through it, and you have to keep an eye on it for this. As the rifle is new, sometimes it starts off a little bit slower, and as the barrel breaks in and seasons in, you'll see an increase in velocity. The highest that we have ever had customers report back to us is 100 feet per second from when the rifle was new to when it was finally broken in. He was a F-class shooter. He was actually invited to the World Championships. He was a great shooter. He was shooting a known load to us that we actually shoot in rifles here, and he had very meticulous notes. And he had picked up, surprisingly to him even, almost 100 feet per second after the barrel broke in. And so here's this poor customer showing up on a dream hunt, and it goes to hell in a handbag. He thinks he's still re-zeroed with the suppressor off, of course. but he doesn't know that he's picked up possibly 50 to 100 feet per second, which is already going to throw his dope off at distance. Then he puts a suppressor on it, which picks up another 30 feet per second on top of that. And at distance, he's shooting a couple feet over the target and scratching his head. Why? So when you're working with suppressors or you're working with a rifle, think of when you purchased it, how many rounds you currently have through it. And there really is just, I think it's a great excuse to go out and buy the Garmin chronograph and just have it with you all the time. Because it's one of those things, even amongst lots we have seen here at the school, where customers will show up with 10 boxes of ammo, 5 of which they bought and already had, and 5 more boxes in which they had purchased from a local store before they left for the school. And on test day, they start shooting over things. We set the chronograph up instantly and find out that they're shooting an extra 30, 40, or 50 feet per second just because of the lot number. So this magnifies and just constantly makes the problem worse when A, you don't know these things happen, so you're no longer in that category. I always say there are those that know, those that don't know, and those that don't know what they don't know. And last is the worst to be in, right? So at least you know to check these things and you know how to sort of A, B, and start problem solving it and things to check. Just to give you the tools in your toolbox. But then you stop the compounding issues that are happening, which is an unknown suppressor on a rifle that's never been on there before, probably not been chronographed since it was new, might not even be sure if he's shooting the right or the same ammunition or same lot number, doesn't know that he's going to pick up velocity or how bad a change of point of impact is going to be, and certainly didn't know to check the alignment with some type of bore rod or rod alignment system that they sell for the suppressor. Throw all that in the mix, and it goes bad really quickly. To make a long story short, the customer opted to hunt with the guide's rifle because he had shot it a couple of times and it hit center at 500-600 yards with the guide's dope. And the guide had his own suppressor on his own rifle. It wasn't an unknown suppressor. And so he shot a known entity and then continued his hunt, worrying the whole time that something was wrong with his scope. Now, by the way, he had a Collis scope on there. So I am 99.9% sure it had nothing to do with the scope. He is coming in for a build assist on Monday, in which I told him part of that build assist, he can bring in that other rifle and we'll gladly take a look at it, check some alignment things with it. It's a factory gun, but he's paying to spend the day with us here. We're going to take the time to try to help AB and problem solve a little bit with him, and hopefully even shoot a little bit at the range and give him his confidence back. But I'm guessing that there's going to be some velocity changes that might have caused him to panic even more when he was shooting high. My guess is if he would have re-zeroed with the suppressor on, he was still going to shoot high without the suppressor because of his speed. Time will tell, and I'll follow up with our next podcast, in which we'll talk about this a little bit more in detail. All right, before we continue on, I do want to say thank you to one of our last sponsors and advertisers. Krieger Barrels is the maker of fine cut rifle barrels. They are one of the top tier level barrel makers in the country and possibly even in the world. They are a family owned and operated business, and they offer a new program called Krieger Direct. We can log on and possibly get your barrel in as little as 2 to 3 business days with inventory that they try to keep up there for customers to purchase direct. They also feature a sales page where you can log on and look through all the different barrels that have come up for sale over the years. A lot of it is customers order something, it's in process, and all of a sudden they change their mind on a twist rate or they change their mind on a contour. Well, Krieger will finish that barrel and then they'll just put it up on their website for sale. So don't forget about their sales page either. So if you really want to upgrade your shooting and you would like to do it with a barrel, quality matters. And in my mind, Krieger is still probably one of the best in the world. So you can stop over to KriegerBarrels.com. That's KriegerBarrels.com today. A couple really important announcements to talk about. Some upcoming shows that we're getting ready to attend and looking forward to meeting everybody. But this is just a 5 or 10 minute, hey, let's just talk. Number one, we already got another strike, a second strike from YouTube on a totally, like we were just talking about our prosumer gunsmithing school. We weren't showing anything. We weren't teaching anything. We weren't building anything. We weren't modifying firearms, which is totally against YouTube's, policies. We didn't do any of that. We got a strike again last week. I'm pretty sure they're headhunting companies like ours. After so many strikes, of course, they just make your channel just disappear. So we sort of suspect we're going to get another strike. We have hundreds of videos up there. We're really careful with what we post. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see another strike here shortly, which will just delete our channel. So we're working as fast as we can to bring all of that content over to Rumble. And unfortunately, although it's not as big a audience as YouTube, at least there's a place you can go and enjoy it. So we're really going to recommend to any of our listeners out there that would like to follow us along and stuff that we're posting. We're going to keep posting on YouTube, but we're probably not going to post as much or in detail as we can with Rumble. And certainly, with any of the firearm stuff, we might just post an announcement. Hey, do we have a new Rumble video out talking about the subject? If you'd like to learn more about it. Not sure what else to do, but I am preemptively telling you that we've had 2 strikes. We've never had a strike with YouTube, and we have a channel up there for 5 years. And then all of a sudden, we got a strike last week just because I talked about not a barrel vise, but a working vise on your bench for working on rifles. Think of like just something that you're going to hold all of your parts and pieces with. And they flagged me talking about a workbench vise as against our policies. And I PO'd it. They denied it. And then they just flagged us again for just talking about our prosumer gunsmithing school that's coming out. So we suspect that we'll probably see a 3rd strike and a 4th strike here within the next week or 2, in which case that channel disappears. In which case we're not going to go back. I mean, we're not going to try to open up a channel under another name. I really think they already hide us. All of our content's hidden. You know, we never pop up in any of the algorithms. I mean, we've had customers that are professionals in this field that have said that, hey, your channel is being messed with. That you should have 1,000 more viewers and 1,000 times more views and viewers. I mean, it's just we're intentionally being tampered down. So there's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately. It's just the society that we live in. But that said, though, if you want to follow us along, even though we're still got a YouTube channel up there, almost all of our heavy hitting content that's worthwhile, and we're going to be able to get into subjects that we think is worthwhile and showing you things that are perfectly legal and worthwhile. You're going to see all that over on Rumble. You can see the link down below, so you can go to the channel and subscribe now if you would like. And you also notice that a lot of the links that are they're free because you asked series under our prosumer gunsmithing school that's online, those links actually go over to Rumble now. And that way we don't do all this work and in the next 6 months or a year from now decide that we're the evil enemy. I always say that, we're 24 years of dedicating my life to this country, whether it's through military, law enforcement, police, CERT. I have risked my life many times in different situations serving the community. And yet we still serve law enforcement. We build rifles for law enforcement. We train law enforcement, but yet we're the bad guys. We're singled out and we're intentionally destroyed by corporations, hurting our business in ways that it's terrible. So there are other channels out there that are really inappropriate that just thrive and they get the views, they get the hits, and it's what people want to consume. So we'll go ahead and turn our moral compass in another direction to let that stuff slide. But here, a small company like us, doing hard work and doing great work, that have served our country and did something more than wear translucent whatever clothes on YouTube to get hits, because we're a legit business and we have served our country, that we can't, get any respect and we can't continue on sharing the content that we think our customers value. So just to get off that rant for a minute, expect to see that channel probably disappear very shortly. And then everything will be just posted up on Rumble. We suspect Facebook will follow. I know that they've already gone after some different companies that have been against our policy. Of course, they're all sort of in the same boat together. So we will still probably post up on X. And then, of course, Truth Social will probably post up on there as well. Some other exciting news. We are getting ready to go to SHOT Show. So we haven't been to SHOT Show in a couple of years. I think when COVID hit, it just killed everything. Plus, we were in a position where we're moving our facilities and putting new processes and procedures in place. So this is the first year that we've been back to SHOT Show. We will be on the main floor with all the major manufacturers, with Ruger and Sig Sauer, and so we're super excited. We've got a great booth. I'll share our booth number in the next couple of podcasts if you'd like to come by and see us. If you're interested in checking out the ACE and talking about some of the different products and pieces that we do make and that we work on, and the benefits that we're seeing in making and using the ACE system when when manufacturing a rifle, we will be at SHOT Show 2026. So I'm super excited to be there. Believe it or not, I know a lot of you might think this is crazy, but I actually drive. So I will be leaving the state of Pennsylvania probably a couple of days prior and driving the whole way out to Las Vegas. Part of that is because a lot of the equipment that we take, I just never feel comfortable shipping it. I get control of it. Plus, I've got my vehicle there. I've got everything. I don't have to worry about shipments not showing up, things being broken into, stolen. You know how that goes, especially with firearms and all the components that we'll be taking. I have been to shows where stuff like that has happened to people. And so for me, I don't mind the quiet time in the car. I turn on a great podcast like this one, and I listen to a podcast or book the whole way out. But we will be at SHOT Show 2026. Also, the Great American Outdoor Show 2026. We were scheduled to be there last year. Unfortunately, we all came down with a really bad case of the flu 2 days prior to the show. I have never missed a day of work. I mean, I'm always here. I always just push through it. You know, pain and suffering I always say that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So unless I think I'm going to make everybody at work sick, I just come to work and, leave the crying at home. But we were bedridden. I mean, I was so sick I couldn't even get out of bed. And that was all of us. We were so sick. And we were getting ready to lose one of our guys here that was going to be a lead there at the show. Adam, he had moved on to a great military contract that he had landed. And which we're very, we're glad that he was able to find something else out there and that it was a good step forward for him. We miss him, and we certainly didn't want to lose him, but unfortunately, it was right 2 weeks prior to SHOT Show was his last day. I think he left at the end of January. So with all that combination, we weren't able to get to the Great American Outdoor Show last year just because of the flu. But this year, we have new team members here, so we're well staffed up to be there in case somebody gets wiped out with the flu or we get some people sick. We're able to rotate some people through the show. But we will be at the Great American Outdoor Show talking about the Gen 4A, sharing the tools to take it on and off, having some demonstrations there as well as our barrel vices and some of the other pieces and components that we will need for you to go ahead and work on, maintain, and build your rifles. The two things we'll be hyper-focusing on at both shows. The first part is really trying to get after establishing the ACE chamber system or chambering using the ACE system as the correct way to do a modern bolt action rifle, as a step forward. Not a replacement, not an upgrade, but the correct way. There are a lot of things that it's solved as far as issues with making the chamber into the barrel, and we've talked about that in previous podcasts. But we're getting ready to launch and release it for several other action makers and leaving that door open. We've already had those conversations. We've sort of held them off. We're thinking in 2026 we'll start working on that exclusively. But, of course, Bad Actions is everything that we build on here. That is one of our go-to actions for sure. But just like there's Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Mercedes, I mean, there's just so many manufacturers in the world of custom actions now, and a lot of them are very brand loyal. And so if you drive a Ford your whole life, I'm not going to convince you to buy a Chevy, right? So we know those customers are out there. So we're going to work on and start partnering with and looking for partners in those markets to really hyper-focus in on manufacturing the barrels and the ACE system. What we really want to focus on for the next 18 to 24 months is being a leader in pre-fit barrels using the ACE system for a lot of the different action makers out there. We want to hyper-focus on doing what we do the best, which evolves around the ACE system itself, as well as doing the barrel work. So when we do the work to accept the ACE. The second part to this, which is really important, and why we have this building that we have here in Johnstown, is to training, hyper-focusing on the prosumer gunsmith, teaching and showing people how to build custom rifles. Prosumer gunsmith would be someone who's doing it for themselves or doing it for, hey, I want to build one for my son, or, my neighbor down the road's really getting into hunting. We'd like to put one together. So, we can buy up all the parts and, we can put it together and sort of show them how it's done. But then we also have the gunsmiths themselves that are manufacturing or retailing. And so they want to have the ability to go ahead and build and maintain and work on rifles. For example, we have a shop in Texas that has done this. We have a shop in California that has done this as well, to where they love our system. They shoot our system. They've had great luck with our system. They want to offer it to their customers, but they don't want to be a machinist. And so they can take their gun store without hiring a gunsmith, without hiring, people that are experts in trying to chamber, which we would consider old school, and then worrying about buying lathes, mills, insurance, people that can actually run that equipment and maintain it. Well, now they can offer custom rifles to their customers with literally $400 worth of tools. We're also going to focus in and trying to allow a lot of the bigger stores, because we charge a fee for assembly here. I mean, that's fair. We're going to put the labor into it. And the stores can get a nice discount by joining the Wolf Pack under the prosumer gunsmithing page. And they can, depending on the tier that they're at, they can save up to 30% on our labor and parts. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I know in some stuff that we purchased, we get as little as 10%, and until we pay for shipping and everything, we're making like 3% or 4%. Well, that's not worthwhile. We want to make sure that when people join our system or would like to use our system, that they can actually make a living or make a couple dollars for their time. I always feel that that's fair. I never take anyone's time for free. So when people come in and even just do us a favor, or they're helping us work on a project, and they're like, and my wife rolls her eyes at it sometimes because she's our office manager. So someone comes in and does like a 5-minute job for the alarm system, right? I'll go back, I'll get them a t-shirt, I'll get them this, I'll get them that. One guy came and worked on one of our garage doors, took him like 5 minutes. He didn't want to charge us anything. I gave him $50 for dinner. I mean, that's just, nobody's time's free. If you're going to give somebody something, or somebody's going to give you something in use of their time or expertise, we always like to give something back. And so giving them 30% off the ACE, giving them 30% off the labor to do all the barrel work allows them to put a couple of dollars back into their shop and then help teach and service their customers. So if you're interested, we're going to start opening this up. You'll start to see changes on our website, but you'll start to see our prosumer gunsmithing school coming online. You'll start to see our in-person gunsmithing schools coming online here, as well as the armory being opened up March 1st, which is our goal. We're going to start allowing people to come in and train to do this. So if you're a store somewhere in the United States that would like to offer incredible custom rifles, or like to offer this as a service to your customers, we have a great system to allow you to build world-class rifles with minimal investment in your time and training, and really deliver to your customer some of the best rifles on the planet with certainly the best technology, the biggest step forward in what we think could be done with the modern bolt action rifle when it comes to the chamber and the barrel and the action of joining all of those parts together in a synergetic way that allows them all to perform to their best. So you can reach out to us. You can send us an email if you have some interest and you would like to sort of get on the newsletter that when we start announcing the different dates and programs, reach out to us. If you're an action maker and you would like to potentially work with us on offering this for your customers, we can actually manufacture the ACE and potentially work with you with your barrels, depending on the barrels that you do choose. We always are a little picky on some of the quality of the components. But yeah, give us a call, drop us a line. We'd love to talk to you. This is coming in 2026. We want to hyper-focus on what we're the best at. Now, when we talk about doing the ACE system and we talk about doing the barrels, I know we've talked about this before, and we're going to do some video work on it soon here as well. The machines that we use and the processes that we used really are aerospace. And I know some people will say, well, I can use whatever brand economy type CNC or lathe out there. I can use a manual lathe. I can do this. I can do that. And I can hold those tolerances that you're talking about. Well, I don't want to be the person to say, no, you can't. But here's what we can do. When we are running barrels here, what's absolutely stunning and amazing is when we go from barrel to barrel, and traditionally they might be somewhere around 3/4 of an inch. So let's just say we're cutting 0.7505, right? And we want to be plus nothing and minus a half a tenth, right? We are able to hold 7503 barrel after barrel after barrel, exact. And that is done without having to chase offsets, is what we call it in the CNC world, or changing that as the machines warm up. So most shops are cold in the morning, warm in the afternoon. Sometimes they don't run heat. Sometimes as the machines warm up, actually not sometimes, quite often as the machines warm up, they move. And so now you have to adjust that. That last fourth decimal spot moves all over the place and sometimes even changes the third decimal spot, which means it's changing it by thousands. With the quality of the machines that we have set up here to do barrel work, we can run over and over again. We watch the tool wear because that can affect, as we start to cut 30, 40, 50, 60 barrels, sometimes we have to adjust a tenth, moving in different directions. But I did a handful of barrels yesterday. I was cutting them just to get some deliveries out to some customers. And we were holding to the fourth decimal place spot on every single time. And that comes from quality CNC machines. Unfortunately, the Japanese have the market when it comes to really being able to hold those exceptional tolerances for long periods of time. And we purchased this machine because we knew that, and B, we want to have the least amount of operator input as possible chasing those numbers around. So with these other machines, you can certainly try to hold those tolerances, and you can, but a lot of times it takes a very skilled operator watching it and changing it on the fly from part to part, sort of like fine-tuning it in flight. And it's a harder thing for most to do. It slows things down from a lot of measuring that has to go on as the machines are warming up, and then you're chasing your tail, winding up a little bit of variances off your baseline. So when we hyper-focus on doing barrels, our setup is absolutely incredible. It is world-class, and we dial to the 0.0001 when we do the crown and cut muzzle threads, and we do the same thing when we cut in the throat to accept the A system. So we'll be doing some video work, not showing all the detail, but just showing you, what a modern barrel maker looks like. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate it. If you like the podcast and you wouldn't mind giving us a 5-star rating, it helps us a lot with our standings. And if you enjoyed this podcast and would like to share it, we certainly appreciate that too. That helps us out a lot as well. If you have any questions for the Because You Asked series, if you would like us to answer some of those on the podcast or in video form, please feel free to email us. Our email here is contact@wolfprecision.net. We'll put a link down below. You can send it off, or you can go to our website at Wolf Precision and just hit the contact button and send us a note there as well. So thank you everybody for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate it. My name is Jamie Dodson. I'm your host, and you're listening to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.